Hi, everyone. Hello. I'm exhausted. Are you exhausted? I think you probably are. I hear it all the time from academics and especially from those in our who come and start our programs. The ones who finish our programs feel somewhat less exhausted, but it is, it comes and goes. It can get worse and get better. And so today I want to talk about how operating under the kind of very, very high standards that you have for yourself is exhausting. And exhausted people have a hard time writing. So there's a relationship between any kind of creativity and rest. And something that you might not, like maybe you're like an engineering professor or a chemistry professor, and you don't really think of yourself as like a creative person or a person who is creating, but you are. So professors create all the time. We create syllabi for our courses. We create lectures and PowerPoint presentations. We create learning materials. We create environments, right? We create labs. We create writing, right? And so even though you might not think of the kind of academic writing that you do as like creative writing, you are creating when you are writing. And so any act of creation like that really does require a commensurate amount of rest. But as an academic, you're probably not that great at resting. And all of this is complicated by the fact that you are operating under with the highest standards. So today I want to talk about those high standards. I want to talk about how they lead to exhaustion and then how exhaustion undermines writing, to make the connection between, not lowering your standards in a bad way, but saving your super high standards very intentionally for certain kinds of things at certain times. And then, loosening your standards somewhat, your work is still going to be awesome, for other things depending on your goals and what you want to do. Because here's the bottom line. You can't write from a place of exhaustion. And so your publication pipeline will stall out if you are exhausted all the time. Let's dig into that. So let's talk first about operating at exceptionally high standards. You probably finished your PhD and got your tenure track job because you operate with really high standards, right? So you're not doing your work halfway. You are trying to be the best at what you do. You're trying to do the best job in everything. Especially for women, you really have this idea, and it's learned through the culture of academia, that you have to do more than men have to do. If you're a woman of color, you are intersectionally having to do more to prove yourself in the eyes of that white male culture of the academy, right? We women of color especially are undermined and ignored by that kind of culture of academia writ large. And so it feels like we got to work extra hard. We have to always be impeccable. We have to, just operate with the highest standards, and we can't slip. That is not possible for humans to maintain all the time. And we are humans. So we really have to think about the ways in which we can manage our energy and manage our expectations around what parts of our career or what activities that we're involved in we are going to give that high standard to, and what places in our career and even in our lives, right, where we can accept a lower standard, still excellent, still good, but not it has to be the best ever. So let me give you an example. One example is like when you're writing a grant, we want to go for excellence, right? Like we really want to have high standards in grant writing. It's going to increase our ability to get the grant. And since it's so much work and energy to write a grant, it's really like hard to, it's hard to see it not get funded, right? Because we've put so much time and energy into it. So you definitely want your like grant writing to have a really high standard, right? But let's say you're going to a committee meeting and you have to take the minutes. Please take mediocre minutes. Like just let it be fine. It doesn't have to be great, right? You don't have to operate with a like super high level of excellence in all these things. And truthfully, like for teaching, like of course we want to be excellent, great teachers. Do we also have to like in every single assignment be meticulous graders? Like could we have some assignments where we grade meticulously and others where we don't? How can you kind of manage your energy output towards your teaching work so that you're putting lots of energy into the important things that you want to do with a high standard, and then letting some other things be like just the same that they were last year? Like no reason to have to like reinvent the wheel or try to do it better and better every year. Like some things we could do better, some things maybe we just leave them the same. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are working from this place where you are always pushing to this super, super high level of excellence, and that's probably how you got to where you are, that's great. And you've earned the ability, and everybody has the right to this, right? But you can now be more deliberate and more intentional about where you demand excellence from yourself and where things can just be good, like just fine. Because truthfully, your good and your fine is probably better than most people's good or fine. It's probably excellent. If we continue to demand this kind of high level of excellence in every single thing that we do in every aspect of our job, we will just get exhausted. And this is the connection that I want to make. If you are operating from exhaustion, you can't write. Like you can't write exhausted. Or you can, but it's like 3-4 times slower than it would be if you weren't exhausted. And that's because creation, like writing, creative activity, which writing is, whether you're science or whatever kind of writing you are doing, creating, that requires a certain amount of rest from you. So here's something that how this manifests a lot for people is like they'll say like, I just don't have any motivation to write, right? So they'll be like, well, I haven't, I have my pipeline's clogged up, and it's because I have a lack of motivation. And the first question I ask everyone is, do you have a lack of motivation, or are you like tired, like deeply exhausted? And for many people, they are deeply exhausted. So we're striving and striving and striving to be like excellent in everything we do. And then with this really high standards, and then we get exhausted. And then we say we have a lack of motivation for writing. And it's just like, it's really treating yourself like inhumanely to do that. So writing needs rest. Like writing, I'm not saying to use this as like some kind of, excuse to not write. Like, well, I'm never rested, so I'll never write. Like, no, not that either. not the extremes. You need to acknowledge that you can't really write from a place of exhaustion. So you have to look at how you can be less exhausted. And that's where you can look to like, well, where are there places where I want to keep my high standards, and what are the places where I can just be good instead of being like, oh, I have to be, the most excellent minute taker at this meeting, or I got to chair this committee in like the most excellent way that anybody's ever chaired the committee. Like really? Like you don't really though. So save those like moments where you're like, I really, really want to do excellent work, for the work that is deserving of your very precious energy and attention. The other layer here, right, to combat exhaustion so that you can write, is rest. I'll just give you like a really real example right now. It's been a very difficult 3 months over here in my coaching business, and also somewhat like with some health things with the kids. We all got just like a terrible cold that brought us down. I'm still like this like little weird cough that I have is still part of that bad cold that lasted for 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. Like I think we're on week 5 now, where we still kind of have this like still not 100%. And I just feel run down. I feel really run down. And of course, my coaching friends were all like, when are you going to take a break? When are you going to take a break? And I knew like I needed to take a break as well. Thankfully, that break is happening. So that's really, really good. And so I want you to think about like for yourself, like what has been dragging you down? What has been sucking your energy? How can you combat exhaustion, right? Like how can you build in some rest so that you can feel better and so that you have some place to write from? So I was talking to a client the other day, and she was talking about how she has this like really long warm-up period for writing. Like she was using the word procrastination, like she procrastinates for like 2 hours before she can like actually start writing. But when she was describing what she was doing, I'm like, I don't think that you're procrastinating. I think that you are tired, like that you are like resting. So she would do things like she would have a coffee and really enjoy drinking it. She would play a video game on her phone. She would take a walk. And I'm like, well, all of those things can be like restorative things, right? They can help you to rest and feel, like rest your brain from the academic work. So maybe what you're actually doing when you think you're procrastinating, you're actually it's your brain trying to get the rest that you're not getting. And similar to that lack of motivation thing, and I'm, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm doing a lot of air quotes. The lack of motivation thing, like, is it lack of motivation or are you just like really, really tired? And it's not lack of motivation, it's lack of rest, right? So thinking about how, not just through one technique, but across everything that you're doing in academia, how can you find the ways to make it less exhausting and to build in rest? So the title of this video or audio, if you're listening on the podcast, is about, striving to be the best at everything. And really you just need to like let some things be just okay. That's one way that you can preserve energy so that you're not so exhausted. Another way is to actually rest, right? To really like think about what is it that you need to have downtime for your brain or to rest your body and your brain. Like, so for me, I love reading a novel. It can't be a very like literary novel. Like it needs to be like a romance novel or like a fantasy fiction novel or something like that. Really is like page turny, or I'm watching a very solid B level Netflix series that there's like 4 seasons of, and I'm like, great, that helps me when I can't rest my brain. That kind of like, okay, I'll watch a series, I'll read a novel, that kind of thing really helps me rest. So you got to find out for you, what is the activity that's going to help you rest? It's not always like take a nap, although also naps are welcome, For me, I can lie down to take a nap and I'm just still thinking about work. So like I need to do something else. So what is it for you? And how can you build more of that in every day? Something that is just like really transformational for me is walking. It can be a 10 or 15 minute walk. Is preferably a walk without headphones. But if you have trouble, like, again, like if you have trouble like turning off your brain and you want to turn it off so you're not thinking about work stuff, then then you could listen to a podcast or you could listen to an audiobook. But it's really important to figure this out, because you cannot write from a place of exhaustion. And like I said, it looks like different things. We call it different things. We call it lack of motivation. We think like, oh, we lost interest in writing. Sometimes we think we're not good at writing. And really what it is you're exhausted. So to summarize, if you're operating at the highest standards all the time, you are leading a life of exhaustion. You have to figure out how to put your energy and time, but especially your energy, behind the things that deserve it. And let the other things that you do be just fine, instead of, like they don't have to be awful, but that they're just okay. Like they're just done with a level of acceptability. They are acceptably done. And then you also really need to find the ways to rest your brain, to rest your body, to take breaks, to kind of like work to continually fill your cup of resting and restoration. Because if you don't, you won't have a place to write from. And so my message to those of you who maybe have said that to yourself, right? Like, I just don't have the motivation to write. I have so many things and I don't have the motivation. Or here's another way that manifests: because it's a little easier for some people to start projects than to continue projects. Because we're really tired, we are serially starting things instead of taking projects all the way to the end, which is another way that our exhaustion can clog our pipelines. So we're just we get that little hit of motivation because it's something new. But what really is happening is that you are exhausted. So you need to rest. I always believe that we coach about the things that we need coaching on, and I definitely need a rest. So it's Friday when I'm recording this. So I'm going to go and do that resting. I hope that you do the same, and just understand that if you want to publish more things and if you want to get your writing and your voice out in the world, you need to rest. You can't do it from a place of exhaustion. So it is worth it to think about what you can do to make your situation better so that you're not exhausted, so you can write and publish. By the way, we have the wait list for our next cohort of Navigate open. So I'm going to leave a link here, but basically it's scholarsvoice.org/navigate. And you can click on the pink button to join the wait list. Now, joining the wait list means that you're going to be the first one to hear when we are opening our enrollment period. Our enrollment involves an application process. We highly curate our Navigate community. So if you are interested in some of the things I've been talking about here, and especially when it comes to that energy, like putting your best energy behind the things that deserve it, there's a lot of that in Navigate. So if you're interested in joining our next 12-week cohort of our Navigate program, which is a program for clearing your publication pipeline so that your voice is heard in the world at the level that it should be, then go ahead and go get on the wait list. Have a great day. Bye.